emotional, yeah, or not being defensive. You know,
Yes.
you don't have to always be defensive, obviously. So,
Okay, so then what pose do I get in to learn emotional defense? Or to start to understand?
lateral hamstring,
Lateral
a
hamstring.
bladder stretch.
Okay.
So we'll give you the most intense bladder stretch to do, and it will look basically. See, your attitude to me is a very entertaining part. But anyhow, because I don't know my own yet, so it's entertaining to watch yours. I'm sure I'm raging in attitude, but I don't know about it. But anyhow, we'll put you in, see, you likes that about me. So we'll put you in that bladder stretch, and it'll look innocuous and very simple to do.
Yeah.
And then after you're in it for like a minute and a half, all hell's going to break loose. Because it mounts, emotionality mounts. It's
Yeah.
not like thinking where it's done deal because you understand. Emotionality keeps developing,
Yeah.
not feelings. Those are different.
Yeah.
Yeah, those
Oh,
are
fuck.
quick and
Okay.
can last a lifetime. I'll give you an example. In the physical world, the physical types have different ways of loving.
Yes.
So I have the most superficial form of love, which is unconditional. So the person fucks up, I'm like, well, everybody's fucking up, so what difference does it make?
Oh my gosh.
But then there's another form, your form, which we call an assassin's form of love. You pick the person, and like an assassin, you go after them.
Oh boy.
You target them, right? That's what you do, right? I call it an assassin's form of love. And some people like that assassin's form of love.
Yeah.
It's associated with skin. Then there's the thymus type. They love a person forever. Not this lifetime. Forever. The Great Gatsby. Forever.
Well, that's good.
That's a
Wow.
thymus form of love, right?
Wow.
And then there's the lung form, which is that the lungs on a plane, they look out the window and they love every person, every animal, and every house. And so when they look at you, if I'm along and I'm looking at you, you are just another one
Yeah.
of those endless numbers of everything I can be loving.
Yeah.
And there's only one type that can return the love of the whole world into one person, and that's a large intestine, their balancing type. Otherwise, the lung never feels satisfied, because what they're normally doing, loving everybody, is never returned to them individually. So see,
Yeah.
I'm much more, my type, the thinking types have sensation all the time, right? You're having sensation inside. And it's like there's a red one and a blue one and a green one and a white one. And these are like pegs that go in and out. And every time somebody says something, we already have all of our pegs kind of identified. And then the moment you show up or another person shows up, the pegs start changing. But we're paying attention to those pegs all the time, and so we know what it means, and that's how we know it's you and not us. So if all of a sudden I'm with you and all of a sudden the peg change, I'm like, oh, I'm happy. Oh, she's happy. See, we don't. That's the only way we know the other person. We're not out. We're not playing outside. We know it from the inside. So my type does that the most with words. So when I look at you and my sensation changes, it turns into thoughts, and then that's close to knowing what you're thinking.
Yeah.
So then after a while, people are like, get out of my head, Bob. Stop knowing what I'm thinking. And I'm like, I don't really, it's just an approximation.
Yeah.
I can't really know that. I'm not
Exactly.
stupid enough to
Yeah.
think I know that. Other people are like, wow, you can really, I'm like, that is
No.
not what that's like.
Yeah.
It's a speculation, really.
I understand that.
But I watch you do it, because you're
Yeah.
a very loud thinker. You're pretty noisy in your thinking.
Yeah, I don't really try to hide it.
You know, when I'm around
If I want to, I can.
when I'm around people like you, oftentimes I'm like, can you turn down your radio, please? I can't think.
Yeah.
Like, it's too much, it's too loud. Wait, you know how loud he is. So, so we'll give you the bladder form of emotionality so you can differentiate what emotionality is from what most people would call feelings instead.
Okay.
So love isn't a feeling, and you could call both of these emotions, but feelings and desires are separate things, really.
Mhm.
Not that they're not joined, they're different categories of things. So if you desire some water to drink, that's not the same thing as loving the water.
Yeah.
It's a different thing.
Outside, I love water, but
Yeah, you love water, but not like, oh, I really am attracted to that.
I fuck this water.
See what I see? So there's a difference that way.
How do you find your weak link?
The weak link is easy to identify. What happened was that, first of all, it cost 4 men 6 months training a young guy 2 hours every morning to identify that phenomenon. So this idea came with a huge financial investment by 4 people to figure out this concept. This was not just a quick identification. So after I identified it, I then had to know how to make it so other people could identify it. Because otherwise, right afterwards, I would look at a person, I could tell what their weak link was, but I didn't know how I was getting it. And it took me about 6 months to figure that out, and it shows up this way. Have you ever noticed people that are, say a guy has a big, huge chest, but he's got dinky little legs? Or have you ever seen women that have like huge lower bodies, but dinky upper body? Where the upper and lower body proportions don't match? You ever seen that? Speed skaters are known for having no chest, and ballet dancers no chest, but like huge legs, the guys, right? That's called a physical disproportion. That means a trauma occurred, and it's now showing up as a false representation of one of the 4 physical types. So there's 4 groups of types, and when a trauma happens in childhood, a person's disconnected from a part of themselves, say the lateral quad. So then the inside of the leg no longer has the source for that muscle to work, and so they present a false representation of weak. That's what ends up happening. So remember, the weak link is a false representation. A person's disconnected from one of 16 parts of themselves, and now, because the source of that type they've been disconnected from, they present it false. So for me, that was a problem with intimacy as a child, and so intimacy is balanced by brain. Brain is where trust and aristocratic is. So then I went to the most aristocratic college in the world and taught, Williams College. I lived in a 10-room house. Antique. I created the entire phenomenon. Antique furniture, crystal glasses, bone china. You know, the whole thing. The aristocratic richness. And I realized I wasn't happy. So I thought I could present happiness by creating it externally in the way that might represent. Because happiness is associated with brain, the part I was disconnected from. So there's 4 parts, there's 4 body disproportions. One where the upper and lower body don't match. That's called a physical weak link. I have an analytical weak link. So what happens is that when you look at me, my left and right side don't look similar. I have a very big difference between the left side of my body and the right side of my body. They don't look the same. So that's a thinking weak link. An emotional weak link is, there's some famous people that I'm associated with that have an emotional weak link where when you look at them this way, they look one way. When they turn sideways, they look totally different. So the person I'm referring to looks kind of fine this way, but when they turn sideways, they're huge this way. Or sometimes you can see a guy or a girl walking down the beach, and you look at them this way and they look fine, and when they come to you and come sideways, they look totally flat, like somebody ran them over. That's called an emotional weak link, the difference between the front and back view. And then the last one is the spiritual weak link. Alex has this. So spiritual link shows up as they have problems in one of their arms and their problems show up in their opposite leg. So it's a diagonal problem in the body. So for the physical weak link, there's a problem between the upper and lower body, a disparity in the proportion. In the thinking, there's a proportional difference between the left and the right. For emotional, between the front and the back. And spiritually diagonal from one side to another. So if you look in a mirror, or you have people, if you look at yourself in the mirror, have people look at you, and then you go like this first, and they go, and you ask the person, does the top and lower body, do they look like they match? And people are like, yeah, that doesn't look very different to me. Or it would be really different, like some people have like huge shoulders but dinky little waists. And they think they're born that way. That's not really how the body's formed. That's not true, actually. Or that you look at the person and you look at them and these 2 sides are very different, the left and right. And they'll tell you they carry other problems in the left arm, the left right, or maybe on the right arm, the right leg. So that's how you decide what it is. So once you know that, it tells you which world the false personality is showing up in. And then that's not hard to differentiate which one of the 4 it is, because they have very different body shapes, the 4 types in each one of the worlds. And then when you know that, the trick is it's the unconscious of that type that the person was disconnected from, the source of that type. And if you then develop that part, the person starts representing a true representation of that false personality for them. And it becomes a gift. So for me, the intimacy invasion as a child, that's sexual, caused a problem in the brain, disconnected me from developing the brain type. Well, the brain type is the center for psychology. So when I started taking tension out of my brain meridian and my sexual meridian, I brought something into psychology that's not known for my type. It's from another type. It's from the brain type. So you take the weak link and you turn it into a gift.